Alright guys, how we doing? Welcome back to the channel. Now today we're going to talk about something potentially a little bit more political than we would normally, but I think this is a really important conversation that we need to have. I'd love to hear your opinions on it. I know some of you are going to have really strong opinions on this. Love to hear them down below. Just make sure they're constructive and we can have a conversation, an evolving conversation that could be really important about this topic. So we're going to be talking about Pokemon budgets as the teraleak revealed, unfortunately for Game Freak, and also about the shift to game keycards and generally like game ownership. Now this is sort of something that's very topical at the moment, particularly in the Pokemon space because of course, first and foremost, the move to Switch 2, and we understand that main series Pokemon games from this point forward will be exclusively Switch 2 developed, and also the fact that Pokopia, which was recently revealed, which by the way looks like a really great game, and it's such a shame that it's got this kind of like thing hanging over it, but the game's going to be on a game keycard, right? And what does this mean? Because there's going to be some people watching this that don't know what that means at all, and there's going to be some people that don't care, there's going to be some people that really do care, but overwhelmingly this is a negative reaction. And the reason is because we essentially don't own the game. I've got plenty of games historically. I'll just grab one for a little bit of show and tell. This is a PS1 game. Back in the PS1 days, we literally owned the game. So you just open this up, you put the disc in, and it's good to go. You have the game, you own it, you can play it, you can lend it to your friends. PS5 games, PS4 games, most of these, you buy the games, you own them. You just need to put the disc in and it will work. Obviously now, we live in an age of DLC, internet updates, patches, all of these kinds of changes to the community, the gaming sphere. So I totally get that an internet connection is essential for the optimal experience, right, of playing the game. You want to be downloading the latest patches. You want to make sure that you can play the optimal version of games, but you also want to be able to play the game out the box like you always have been, because then I own the game. It doesn't matter if there's a massive explosion at one of the servers, right, at PlayStation or Nintendo or wherever it is. It doesn't matter because I've bought the game. I've spent my hard-earned money. I've bought the game and I now own the game. If I want to play the original release version of it and I just want to chill and play offline, I can. What a game keycard does is you're not buying a game anymore. You're buying a license and you are shifting the power over to a different force. Nintendo now own the game and you're just buying the right to like open the gate and play it. So at any point in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, if Nintendo decide that you don't own the game or you need to pay some money again or you need to upgrade it or you need to play a certain version, then you cannot play the game despite having purchased it for the RRP, or in America it's called MSRP, of let's say $50. So you're paying this money, but you don't technically own the game. We saw the warning signs when the Switch 2 was released and they did the overview videos and they explained how you can like lend it to one friend at a time to keep that alive, but over time, over 3-4 more generations, that will potentially disappear as people get more used to it. And this is what people are upset about. When I buy a game, I want to own the game, right? The biggest warning sign, the biggest example of this being a problem for me personally, how it's affected me on a personal level, is PlayStation. I've always had a PlayStation console and a Nintendo console simultaneously. They're my two. I just love having both of the exclusive games historically of Nintendo and PlayStation. The Last of Us, God of War, over here obviously Pokemon, Mario, whatever it is, right? Now when the PS3 came out, the PlayStation Network, so going online and playing against my friends on Call of Duty or whatever it was, that was free. And that was one of the major pros it had against the Xbox, because Xbox Live always cost money. Then in the PS4 era, just like Xbox's model, they started charging you for PlayStation Plus, which was essential at that point to be able to play online. Fine, it's annoying, but they've just matched Xbox, right? Now we have to pay £50 or $60, whatever it is, per year to have that full year. I can game online, I can get all of the perks of PlayStation Plus. One of the perks of PlayStation Plus, which was framed to us at the time, was that we got a free monthly game that we could add to our library. We could just add it to our library and then later down the line, let's say I stop paying for PlayStation Plus, I would still have built up a load of free games in my library that I could access even if I wasn't paying at that time, because I was paying and I earned those games during that period, right? So I had a bunch of free games in my library that I could play. Then they changed their whole model, I think about a year ago, maybe slightly more, where now I can only access those games that I've earned if I'm currently paying for PlayStation Plus. So if I stop paying for PlayStation Plus now, I literally can't access any of those games I earned during my PlayStation Plus time. This is terrible. This is how the power shifts from the consumer over time to the studios or the console maker, whoever it is, just basically the corporations, right? And game key cards is a big problem, and it means that we're going to be paying more in the long run. We're going to have less power, and it's a very late stage capitalism pro corporation move. So this is bad, and the Nintendo Switch 2 age seems to be Nintendo's turn to kind of like shift it over. Now, I've personally purchased the last few Pokemon games or as digital copies, and there is an element where it's more convenient. I don't have to keep swapping cartridges and swapping discs. It's just kind of like saved onto my console, and I can just access any game I want. I don't have to swap anything manually. My physical cartridge can't get damaged. So there are pros that they're going to try and tell us are some of the reasons. Ultimately, it cuts costs kind of a little bit for the developers and for Nintendo to like distribute these physical items. It makes everything streamlined, digital, and direct. And this is how they're going to frame it. It's going to be convenient, right, for us and for them. And that's not even necessarily untrue. Like, it is true, but ultimately it's anti-consumer, it's anti-ownership, and it's a real big problem. So that's game key cards. Pokopia seems to be the first Pokemon game that is going to be exclusively game key card, and we have to kind of make our voices known about this, in my opinion, because if we don't, we're just going to succumb to what the powers that be want. And we do have power. We try. Sometimes I feel like we feel powerless as a sort of consumer, and ultimately games are good value. You buy a console for $300, $350, whatever it is. I guess the Switch was slightly more than that, but still, you have 5, 6, 7 years worth of constant entertainment in a world where you have the physical media that you've bought that you can constantly swap and change. Now it's licenses. So it's a different relationship that they want us to have with them. Anyway, this is now sneaking into my favorite gaming brand. Pokemon has been my comfort space for a long time. And when this is starting to happen to the brand that I love, Pokemon, it gets a bit scary and disappointing. Now, some people will say, just get over it. It's the way of the world. It's the way it's going. And for a while, I kind of get that, to be honest with you. But it's irrefutable that even like wider, I don't want to go too political here, but like the wider political landscape of this stuff is just becoming more and more power for corporations and less power for the common consumer. Meanwhile, these record profits are being made. And I'm just going to show you something. So this leads on to this point. We are looking right now at a table that ChatGPT has concocted for us. Now, take this with a slight pinch of salt. I have made sure that we have the most accurate and realistic figures here possible, but these might not be exact figures, to be clear. Some of these are, and some of these are estimates based on things like the teraleak. So we've got a lot of info to give us this kind of well-educated conclusion, right? So from this table, let's take the base game, like this is not including the DLC, the base game of Scarlet and Violet and Sword and Shield, the last two main gen iterations of Pokemon. Now, apparently Sword and Shield was around a $16.65 million budget. Very, very low compared to, for example, GTA 5 up here, which we'll come on to, at 260. So something like 15 times the size of that budget. And GTA is an extreme example, but we'll talk more about that. So Pokemon games, Pokemon New Gen, seem to be around about the 20 million mark, right? 21.99 for Scarlet and Violet base. It says here 16.65 for Sword and Shield's base budget. And even combined, and this is with the DLCs included, we don't have how many DLC copies sold, so that's why this area is blank. But it's around 20 to 30 million. Let's say that's the rough budget that they spend on developing Pokemon games. However, the return on investment for Pokemon is incredible. It's so big. They spend 30 million. Let's even call that 32 million, right? Which if we're rounding it up, we're being generous. They make 1.53 billion in revenue based on predicted sales. Even the base game, it says here 1.35 billion. So the return on investment, obviously you take away some of the costs, marketing costs, localization costs, all of that kind of stuff, and you get something like $1 to $1.5 billion of profit. We already know that Pokemon is the highest grossing franchise in the world. And on some level, you have to just go, wow, that is great business. Your return on investment is absolutely incredible. But this figure cannot continue, and this is going to have to increase. The teraleak told us that there's around a 20 million budget forecast for Pokemon Gen 10, Wind and Wave, and that again is so small. That's even small for like a AA game, or like the category under AAA games. That's even small for that. You see Super Mario Odyssey had £100 million budget. We see Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is predicted to have around a $200 million budget. These are 10 times roughly the size of the Pokemon budgets for games that are competing with Pokemon on the same space. So of course you have people that just say, look, if you enjoy the game, that's what they put out, their business model's working, just go and enjoy the game or don't buy it. Sort of reply to this with your wallet, if that makes sense. But look, I think we are perfectly within our rights as fans of a franchise, as people that have put a lot of money into this franchise, as people that love the world that's been built, that loves the sci-fi elements that uphold Pokemon, all of this great stuff that's in Pokemon. Why are they cutting corners? Why are they having such low development budgets? Well, one reason is because they typically have a 3-year cycle. Occasionally, like the cycle we're in right now, they'll have a 4-year cycle where they'll take 4 years between games. Something like GTA has a far longer development cycle. So we see not only is the budget massive, and that obviously the budget goes up as more time passes because there's more salaries to be paid and all of that sort of thing. But this is like 10, 12 times the size of a typical Pokemon budget. And this was developed probably like 15 years ago, I would say. Yeah, around 2010 this was being developed. And I think it must have taken about 5-6 years in development. That's potentially even generous. GTA 6, they are completely trying to blow out of the water. They've taken like 13 years or something crazy, and it's $1 billion budget. And GTA made $8 billion. That's probably not going to happen, even if Pokemon take 10 years to develop their game, which nobody wants, by the way. But we do need to see more budget. And Red Dead Redemption 2, $3.5 billion. Pokemon's still making $1.5 billion, but I think this is fragile. This is really I don't think this will last, because the more low quality, no voice acting, fade to white instead of actually animating a cutscene, the longer this happens, it will just go like Call of Duty, where Call of Duty in the late 2000s, early 2010s, Modern Warfare 2, World at War, Black Ops, that kind of era of Call of Duty, they could just afford to get one out every year and people would come flooding. Over time though, them religiously sticking to that format, bringing one out every year, decreased the quality. It got stale. People got fed up of it. People got fed up of the same stuff. There was actually a perceived lowering in quality over time. And this is what's happening with Pokemon right now. So I'm glad that they took the extra year. But this, if we go down to here, shows us the Gen 10 budget, which was leaked, which is around 20 million. Again, this is a snapshot in time. This is a forecasted budget. This probably doesn't account for marketing, things like localization, where they transcribe it into all the different languages. This is before maybe decisions have been made on voice acting and some of the responses to Legends EA have come out. This could double, but this needs to be at like 100 million. This needs to be like 5 times the size. And that's even if they keep doing a 3 to 4 year development cycle. It needs to be a lot more. Japanese developers have a lower pay generally than like American developers. So even if this went up to 70 million, 80 million, that would be they would be able to do so much. They would be able to employ more people. They'd be able to animate things. They'd be able to do cool things with physics. Tears of the Kingdom, they already had all of the assets built for Tears of the Kingdom. And yeah, it was like allegedly double or around double the budget of Breath of the Wild. And that's with the same engine. That's because they included a load of physics. They had the map under the Hyrule. They had the map over Hyrule. They just took care and finesse into it. Hey guys, it's Jamie from the future here. Now, editing this video, I think ChatGPT has been pretty accurate apart from a few games. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee seems about like double what it actually would have cost them to develop. Hades is probably way off. I think it cost them a lot less than that. And Legends EA was not 45 million either. It was more like something around the 15 million mark. Everything else seems pretty spot on. Maybe Sun and Moon is a little bit overcooked. Maybe it's more close to 20. But then again, with Ultra Sun and Moon, it probably is 30, 40 million. So just again, take this with a little bit of a pinch of salt, but it is mostly right apart from those that I just mentioned. All I think needs to happen with the budget is there needs to be a balance. I think a 4-year development cycle is pretty optimal in the Switch 2 era. Obviously, they've got access to new hardware now. The Switch 2 is more powerful. So you're going to see a natural improvement in quality and finesse and graphic fidelity, basically, and frame rate. This is natural stuff, but they still need, and Gen 9 was a massive indicator of this, they need to optimize their games, they need to stop taking shortcuts, and they need to have some pro-consumer changes, which seems very rare in the modern world, but that's what needs to happen in my opinion. I do want to reiterate, this is just I believe a forecasted budget. This could change. This could become 40, 50. We don't know if the DLC will be expensive based on some of the other info that came out in the teraleak, whereby Pokemon didn't feel like the return on investment was worth it for the Gen 9 DLC, Scarlet and Violet. They spent a lot, they still made a profit, but allegedly it wasn't worth it in their eyes. They didn't make enough profit according to like the Pokemon company. So I think when we're having this conversation, we need to be aware of what's going on. We need to distinguish the Pokemon company, who are the numbers guys, from Game Freak, who are just the developers that want to make a good game. Game Freak essentially will probably get told by the Pokemon company, here's your budget, go make a game, go make Gen 10 on this budget. Game Freak obviously might have some power to push back, and there's people like Masuda who is kind of like a bridge between the two. But they've produced Beast of Reincarnation, right? Beast of Reincarnation looks like it's had about 100 million chucked at it. It looks like a AAA game. It looks beautiful. It looks like the colors and the animations and some of the things that have been programmed into that game look incredible. So it's only a matter of time before they're going to have to do that for Pokemon, in my opinion. Will I still buy Gen 10 if it's on a 20 million budget? Probably, but if it's in the same pattern as Gen 9, where you can clearly see it was released in an unreleasable state, there was so much lag, it looked terrible, there was so much lacking in terms of finesse, no voice acting, they had to patch it a bunch of times. The Switch 2 version, which came out like 2.5 years after the initial launch, was the optimal version that we eventually got to play if we wanted to buy the new console. All of these things are known now by us. So anyway, guys, between ranting about this and between ranting about the game keycard situation, I just hope that we can have a healthy conversation about the direction that game ownership and the game industry is going, and what can we do. We can put comments on the videos. We can look, ultimately these guys only speak one language, and that language is sales. It's hard money, right? So if the sales drop for ZA firstly, and then for Gen 10, if they do continue with this low budget stuff, then and only then may they change their model, because they'll see it going downhill. If people still lap up the game and it's doing like 20, 30 million sales, then they'll probably keep the same kind of system, because the return on investment is, I mean, even Sun and Moon wasn't $1 billion, but these days on the Switch, where we can all kind of agree that the quality's got lower, they're making a lot more. They're making almost double what they used to make on the handheld budgets. They're making like 1 to 1.5 billion. So for them, it's like, the money's going up, why would we change our process, you know? But the other thing is, Pokemon being the biggest franchise in the world and how many people are tuned into the franchise, if they did drop a GTA budget and take an extra year to really finesse the game, you could see like this become 4, 5, 6, 7 billion. You really could. And I don't think that they're brave enough to do that. I think they're taking slow steps towards that, but still, this budget, this reported budget for Gen 10, way too low. But we want Gen 10 to be much, much more than this, guys. Anyway, let me know your thoughts, guys. Will Pokemon just continue doing it? Will they eventually have to? Will they be forced into a place where they have to start upping the budgets, upping the development time? To be fair, we haven't seen Gen 10 yet. We haven't seen what the game looks like. It could be the best game ever. It could be that they've pulled off this miracle where it's this beautiful game that suddenly, like, at the level of its, at the technical level at least, of its competitors, Metroid, Mario, Zelda, but somehow I doubt it, right? So let me know what you think about this topic. There's a lot of strong opinions in this. There's a lot of people that are going to have different thoughts. Please just be respectful and constructive down below. So anyway, guys, let me know everything that you think about this topic. It's an important conversation to have. I don't want to do too many political things on this channel, but this is literally going to affect the whole Pokemon consumer base. Some people don't want to think about this, but I think it's an important thing to talk about. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Very interested to see all your thoughts on this. And until next time, love you, gang. Ding.